The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a story of two peoples, both with deep roots in the same land. This land, rich in history and culture, has been a home to both Jews and Arabs for centuries, each group cherishing its own unique connection to the soil. It is a complex and painful history, marked by wars, displacement, and mistrust. The echoes of past conflicts reverberate through the present, shaping the lives of those who call this land home. Each war, each skirmish, leaves behind scars that are not easily healed. For generations, both Israelis and Palestinians have known only conflict. The older generations recount tales of lost homes and shattered dreams, while the younger ones grow up amidst the rubble, knowing little else but the cycle of violence. Their lives are intertwined, their destinies tragically linked. Despite the barriers and the hostilities, there are moments of shared humanity, where individuals from both sides come together, if only briefly, to acknowledge their common struggles. This conflict has claimed countless lives, leaving behind a legacy of grief and resentment. Memorials and graves stand as silent witnesses to the lives lost, each one a reminder of the human cost of this enduring strife. Yet, amidst the turmoil, the human stories often get lost. The personal narratives of those who have suffered, who have lost loved ones, who continue to hope for a better future, are overshadowed by the broader political narrative. It is easy to get caught up in the politics and the violence, to see only enemies and not fellow human beings. The rhetoric of leaders and the images of conflict can obscure the fact that, at the heart of it all, are people who bleed, who cry, who dream. But behind the headlines, there are ordinary people just trying to live their lives. They go to work, they go to school, they celebrate births and mourn deaths, just like people anywhere else in the world. Families long for peace and security. They pray for a day when their children can play outside without fear, when they can sleep through the night without the sound of sirens. Children deserve a future free from fear. They deserve to grow up in a world where they can dream of becoming doctors, artists, or teachers without the shadow of conflict hanging over them. The conflict's impact is felt most acutely in Gaza, a densely populated strip of land blockaded for over 15 years. The blockade has stifled economic growth, restricted movement, and created a humanitarian crisis that affects every aspect of life. The people of Gaza endure crippling economic hardship, limited access to basic necessities, and the constant threat of violence. Their resilience in the face of such adversity is a testament to the human spirit, but it is a resilience born of necessity, not choice. On the other side, Israelis live with the fear of rocket attacks and terrorism. The threat of sudden violence is a constant presence, shaping their daily routines and their sense of security. Their lives are marked by checkpoints, security barriers, and the ever-present tension. These measures, meant to protect, also serve as a daily reminder of the divisions and the dangers that persist. Imagine a life where leaving your home is a risk. Every step outside could be your last, as danger lurks around every corner, where the sound of bombs disrupts your sleep. The night is no longer a time for rest, but a time of heightened fear and anxiety. This is the reality for millions of Palestinians in Gaza. Their daily lives are a constant struggle for survival amidst the chaos and destruction. The recent escalation in violence has only deepened their suffering. Each explosion not only shatters buildings but also shatters lives and dreams. Homes have been destroyed, families torn apart. The places that once held memories and provided safety are now reduced to rubble. Hospitals struggle to cope with the influx of casualties. Medical staff work tirelessly, often with limited resources to save lives. Food and water are scarce. Basic necessities that many take for granted are hard to come by, leading to long lines and desperate measures. The most basic necessities are hard to come by. Humanitarian aid is a lifeline, but it is often not enough to meet the overwhelming needs. The people of Gaza are trapped in a cycle of violence and despair. Their faces tell stories of loss, pain, and an unending struggle for peace. Their resilience in the face of such adversity is a testament to the human spirit. Acts of kindness and moments of joy amidst the rubble show their unwavering strength. On the Israeli side, the fear is palpable. The constant threat of rocket attacks has created an atmosphere of tension and uncertainty. Families seek shelter in bomb shelters as sirens blare, warning of incoming rockets. These shelters, though providing safety, are a stark reminder of the ever-present danger. The psychological toll of living under constant threat is immeasurable. The stress and anxiety affect every aspect of life, leaving deep emotional scars. Children grow up too fast, their innocence stolen by conflict. They witness horrors that no child should ever see, forever altering their childhood. The recent Israeli military operation in Jenin left a trail of destruction, marking yet another chapter in the long-standing conflict. The raid, part of Israel's ongoing operations in the West Bank, targeted Palestinian militants, aiming to dismantle what they describe as terrorist networks. However, the operation also resulted in significant civilian casualties and widespread damage to homes and infrastructure, leaving many families homeless and in despair. The people of Jenin are now left picking up the pieces, their lives shattered by the violence. They are trying to rebuild amidst the ruins, showing resilience in the face of adversity. The raid has deepened the sense of anger and frustration among Palestinians, who feel increasingly marginalized and oppressed. They feel their voices are not heard, their suffering ignored by the outside world. Protests have erupted, with residents demanding justice and an end to the violence. The cycle of violence continues, leaving deep scars on the community. The psychological impact is profound, affecting not just the current generation but also the future of Jenin. The death of a young American woman during an anti-settler protest in the West Bank sparked outrage and grief. The woman, shot during clashes between Israeli soldiers and Palestinian protesters, became a symbol of the human cost of this conflict. Her death ignited a wave of protests, highlighting the volatile situation in the West Bank. The incident underscored the deep divisions and the urgent need for a peaceful resolution. Her story is a reminder that this conflict claims innocent lives on both sides. Section 5. Beyond the headlines, the faces of fear. Behind the statistics and the news reports are real people whose lives have been irrevocably changed by this conflict. There's the Palestinian doctor in Gaza, working tirelessly to save lives in overcrowded hospitals, haunted by the faces of the wounded and the dying. There's the Israeli mother, living in a constant state of anxiety, fearing for her children's safety every time they leave the house. These are the human faces of the conflict, often overlooked in the political rhetoric and the media frenzy. Section 6. Empty plates, uncertain futures. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is reaching a breaking point. The ongoing blockade has crippled the economy, leaving many families struggling to put food on the table. Children go to bed hungry, their parents helpless to provide for their basic needs. The UN warns of a dire situation, with over 1 million people facing severe food insecurity. The lack of access to healthcare, clean water, and other essential services exacerbate the suffering. The international community must act urgently to address this crisis and prevent further human suffering. Section 7. A mother's plea, a soldier's duty. On both sides of the conflict, mothers share a common fear, losing their children. Palestinian mothers mourn the sons and daughters lost in the violence, their grief echoing the pain of generations past. Israeli mothers worry for their children serving in the military, caught in a conflict that seems to have no end. Their stories transcend the political divide, reminding us that at the heart of this conflict are human beings who experience the same emotions: love, fear, loss, and the longing for peace. Section 8. Voices of Dissent, a Nation Divided. The recent escalation in violence has sparked protests within Israel itself. Citizens are taking to the streets, demanding an end to the occupation and a peaceful resolution to the conflict. They question the government's policies, expressing their frustration and despair. These voices of dissent reflect a growing movement within Israeli society, a yearning for a different future, one where Israelis and Palestinians can coexist peacefully. Section 9. A world watching calls for peace. The international community watches with growing concern as the violence escalates in the region. World leaders are calling for restraint, urging both sides to return to the negotiating table. The UN is working to provide humanitarian aid to those in need and to mediate a ceasefire. The conflict's global implications are undeniable. It highlights the urgent need for international cooperation and diplomacy to find a lasting solution to this decades-long conflict. Section 10. Bridges of Understanding. Despite the deep divisions and the pain of the past, there are glimmers of hope. There are individuals and organizations working tirelessly to build bridges of understanding between Israelis and Palestinians. They organize dialogue groups, cultural exchanges, and peace-building initiatives, bringing people together to share their stories, challenge stereotypes, and foster empathy. These efforts, though often overlooked in the midst of conflict, offer a ray of hope. They remind us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit's capacity for compassion and reconciliation can prevail. Section 11. Hope endures. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a complex tragedy with no easy solutions. Yet, even in the face of violence and despair, hope endures. The yearning for peace, the belief in a shared future, and the unwavering commitment to dialogue and understanding, these are the flickering flames that illuminate the path forward. As long as these flames burn, there is hope for a brighter tomorrow, a future where Israelis and Palestinians can finally lay down their arms and embrace a shared destiny of peace and coexistence.